The morning sun painted the sky purple over Haven's Rest. 8-year-old Marcus Reed ran through the tall grass fields, his bare feet wet with dew. Behind him, Elena Torres laughed as she tried to catch up. Her dark hair flew in the wind like a banner. "Wait for me," she called out, her voice mixing with the sound of distant farm machines. Marcus stopped at the edge of Crystal Creek. The water sparkled like diamonds in the early light. 3 moons still hung in the sky, pale ghosts, waiting for night to return. This was their special place where no grown-ups came to tell them what to do. "Look," Marcus pointed across the creek. "The purple flowers are blooming again." Elena sat beside him on their favorite rock. The stone was warm from yesterday's sun. She picked up a smooth pebble and threw it into the water. It made perfect circles that grew bigger and bigger until they disappeared. "My dad says the flowers only bloom when the moons are lined up right," she said. "He knows lots of things about Haven's Rest." Marcus nodded. Elena's father was the chief engineer for their colony. He fixed the big machines that helped grow food and clean water. Marcus's own father worked the farms with strong hands and a kind smile. Their families had been friends since before the children were born. The colony of Haven's Rest was small, but happy. 200 families lived in the valley between the Purple Mountains. They grew food that tasted better than anything from the old worlds. The air was clean, and the water was pure. Children could run free without fear. "Race you to the old bridge," Marcus said suddenly. They ran along the creek bank, jumping over fallen logs and dodging low branches. Elena was fast, but Marcus was faster. He reached the stone bridge first and turned to see her red face and bright smile. "You always win," she said, but she wasn't angry. They sat on the bridge with their legs hanging over the side. Below them, the creek sang its quiet song. Above them, the sky was getting bluer as the 3 moons faded away. This was the perfect time of day when everything felt possible. "Elena," Marcus said, his voice suddenly serious, "do you think we'll always be friends?" She looked at him with surprise. "Of course we will. Why would you ask that?" "I heard my mom talking to your mom. She said sometimes people grow up and move away. They forget about their friends." Elena shook her head hard. "That won't happen to us. We're different." Marcus thought about this. He picked up a small stone and held it tight in his hand. The stone was warm and smooth like Elena's hand when they walked together. "I have an idea," he said. "Let's make a promise. A real one." "What kind of promise?" Marcus felt his cheeks get hot. The words were hard to say, but he knew they were true. "I promise I'll marry you when we grow up. Then we'll never have to be apart." Elena stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, the biggest smile he had ever seen. "I promise too," she said. "But we need something to remember it by." They climbed down from the bridge and walked to the fiberglass plants that grew near the water. The plants had long, thin leaves that were strong, like rope, but soft like silk. Marcus's mother had taught him how to braid them into cord. Working. Together they made 2 bracelets. The work took a long time because their small fingers were not very good at braiding. But finally they had 2 matching circles of silver-green cord. "Now it's official," Elena said as she tied one bracelet around Marcus's wrist. He tied the other around hers. They walked home holding hands. The bracelets caught the sunlight and seemed to glow with their own light. Marcus felt like he could fly. He had made the most important promise of his life, and Elena had said yes. That evening was the harvest festival. All the families came together in the town square. There was music and dancing and tables full of food. The grown-ups talked about the good harvest and the bright future of Haven's Rest. Marcus and Elena sat together on a blanket, watching the celebration. The fiberglass bracelets were hidden under their sleeves, their secret promise safe from the world. "Look," Elena whispered, pointing up at the sky. The aurora was starting. Streams of green and gold light danced across the darkness. Haven's Rest, had the most beautiful auroras in this part of the galaxy. The lights came from the planets, strong magnetic field mixing with solar wind. Marcus thought the lights looked like celebration ribbons hung by invisible hands. Under those dancing colors, with Elena beside him and his bracelet warm against his skin, everything felt perfect. "I'll never forget this night," he said quietly. "Me neither," Elena whispered back. They didn't know that high above them, beyond the aurora and the three moons, ships were moving through the darkness, ships with sharp edges and cold lights, ships that carried creatures who saw humans as nothing more than useful animals. The Dominion fleet was coming to Haven's Rest. The next morning started like any other. Marcus woke up in his small bed and looked out the window at the purple mountains. His bracelet was still on his wrist and his promise was still strong in his heart, but something was wrong. His father was talking to his mother in the kitchen and their voices were worried. Marcus crept closer to listen. 12 ships, his father was saying. Big ones. They're not from any human world. His mother's voice was small and scared. "What do they want?" "I don't know, but we should be ready for anything." Marcus ran to find Elena. She was at her house and her father was working on a radio that crackled with static voices. The voices sounded afraid. "Unknown vessels, please identify yourselves," the radio said. Then came a different voice, cold and harsh. "We are the Dominion. You will prepare for inspection." The word Dominion sent ice through Marcus's chest. He had heard stories from traders about the Dominion, but he thought they were just scary, tales to frighten children. The ships landed that afternoon like giant metal mountains falling from the sky. Creatures came out that looked like walking lizards but bigger than any human. They wore armor that gleamed like black mirrors. Their eyes were yellow and cold. The leader spoke through a machine that made his voice echo across the valley. "This world is now under Dominion protection. You will provide tribute. Your strongest will serve the greater good." Marcus grabbed Elena's hand as families gathered in the town square. The adults looked small and scared compared to the towering lizard soldiers. Children cried and hid behind their parents. "Don't be afraid," Marcus whispered to Elena, but his own voice shook. "I'm not afraid when you're with me," she whispered back. But fear came anyway when the soldiers started pointing at people. They wanted the strongest men and women. They wanted workers for their mines and factories on distant worlds. Marcus watched, in horror, as they took his father and older brother Tom. His mother cried as soldiers dragged them toward the ships. Other families suffered the same pain. The air filled with the sound of weeping. "More workers needed," the cold voice announced. "Children suitable for training programs." Soldiers moved through the crowd, grabbing boys and girls. Marcus felt Elena's hand torn from his as a metal claw seized her arm. "No!" he screamed, trying to reach her. But another soldier caught him and dragged him toward a different ship. The last thing Marcus saw was Elena's face in the doorway of her transport ship. Tears ran down her cheeks, but her eyes were brave. She mouthed the words, "I remember," and touched her wrist where the bracelet was hidden. Then the doors closed, and she was gone. Marcus screamed her name until his voice broke. The soldier carrying him laughed like grinding metal. "Human bonds," the creature said in broken human speech. "Meaningless. You make more humans easily." As his own ship lifted off, Marcus pressed his face to a small window. Below, Haven's Rest grew smaller and smaller until it was just a dot of light. Then even that disappeared into the darkness of space. But Marcus never stopped believing. Elena was alive somewhere among the stars. He would find her. He would keep his promise. The boy had said he would marry her when he grew up. Now he would become a man strong enough to make that promise come true. 15 years had passed since the day Marcus lost everything. The boy who once ran through purple grass was gone. In his place stood a man with hard muscles and careful eyes. His hands were scarred from years of working with hot metal and sharp tools. Forge Prime was a world of fire and smoke. Giant factories covered the planet like metal scabs. The air tasted of burning coal and melted steel. 3 red suns hung in the sky, making every day feel like standing inside an oven. Marcus worked in Factory 7, the biggest weapons plant on the planet. Every day, he and thousands of other humans made guns and ships for their Dominion masters. The work was dangerous and never-ending. Many workers died from the heat or the poison in the air. The creche guards walked between the workstations like giant lizards hunting for prey. They carried electric whips that could drop a man with one touch. Their yellow eyes missed nothing. They spoke to humans the way farmers spoke to cattle. "Move faster, meat," Guard Captain Vex hissed at a tired worker. "The Dominion needs more weapons. You rest when you die." Marcus kept his head down and continued welding pieces of a fighter ship together. His hands moved with perfect skill, but his mind was always somewhere else. Every night, he touched the faded bracelet on his wrist and wondered if Elena was still alive. The bracelet was almost falling apart now. The silver-green cord had turned brown with age and sweat, but Marcus would not take it off. It was his only connection to the life he had lost. His bunkmate was Jake Morrison, a man with gray hair and clever hands. Jake had been a military engineer before the Dominion took him. Now he worked on ship engines and dreamed of escape. "You're thinking about her again," Jake said quietly as they sat in their small sleeping area. The walls were metal and the air was thick with the smell of too many people in too small a space. Marcus nodded. He had told Jake about Elena years ago. Jake was the only person who knew about the promise and the bracelet. "Maybe she's forgotten you," Jake said gently. 15 years is a long time." "She hasn't forgotten," Marcus said with certainty. "I know Elena. She remembers." Jake sighed. He was older and had seen too much sadness. "Even if she remembers, what can we do? We're trapped here until we die." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke the words he had been thinking for months. "We could escape." Jake almost laughed. "Escape? From Forge Prime? The guards would hunt us down in hours." "Not if we were smart about it," Marcus said. "I've been watching the guards, learning their patterns, and there's something else." He pulled Jake closer and whispered, "Lisa Park, in Factory 3. She's been working on the computer systems. She thinks she can break into their networks." Jake's eyes went wide. Lisa Park was famous among the human workers. She was small and quiet, but everyone knew she was brilliant with machines. If anyone could crack Dominion security, it was her. "Even if we could escape," Jake whispered back, "where would we go? The whole galaxy belongs to the Dominion." Marcus touched his bracelet. "I heard something today. 2 creche officers were talking near my workstation. They mentioned the breeding worlds." Jake's face went pale. Everyone had heard rumors about the breeding worlds, but no one wanted to believe they were real. "They keep humans there," Marcus continued. "Force them to have children to make more workers." One of the officers had a list of names. Marcus's voice broke slightly. "Elena's name was on that list. She's on a world called Garden Station." The 2 men sat in silence. Around them, other workers snored or whispered their own quiet conversations. The air recyclers hummed with a sound like mechanical breathing. "If she's there," Jake said slowly, "she's in hell. Then I have to get her out," Marcus said simply. Jake studied his friend's face. He saw something there that made him believe. Marcus Reed was not just dreaming anymore. He was planning. Over the next few months, the 3 friends began to prepare. Marcus mapped the factory schedules and guard rotations. Jake started collecting materials to build weapons from scrap metal. Lisa worked on breaking the Dominion computer codes. They were not the only ones who wanted freedom. Slowly, carefully, they found other humans who were ready to fight. There was Tom Chen, a former pilot who still remembered how to fly. There was Anna Volkov, a doctor who could treat injuries. There was David Kim, who had been a soldier before becoming a slave. The group grew to 12 people. They met in secret, in the deep parts of the factory where the creche rarely went. They shared food and hope and made plans that seemed impossible. "The night shift change happens at 200 hours, Marcus explained to the group. "That's when we have the best chance. Lisa will shut down the security systems. Jake's bombs will create confusion. We take Guard Station 4 and steal their transport ship. What about weapons? Asked Tom Chen. Jake smiled and opened a hidden panel in the wall. Inside were crude but deadly guns made from factory parts. I've been busy, he said. Lisa held up a small device that looked like a broken comm unit. This will get us into their ship computers. Once we're flying, I can navigate us anywhere in the galaxy. Marcus felt his heart beating fast. After 15 years of slavery, freedom was almost within reach. But he was not thinking about freedom for himself. He was thinking about a girl with dark hair and brave eyes, somewhere among the stars. There's something else, he told the group. We're not just escaping. We're going to Garden Station to rescue the people there. Some of the group looked worried. Rescue missions were much more dangerous than simple escape. That's suicide, Anna Volkov said quietly. Garden Station will be heavily guarded. Maybe, Marcus said. But I made a promise once. I'm going to keep it. Jake put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. We're with you, he said. All of us. The others nodded one by one. They understood. The Dominion had taken everything from them. Their families, their homes, their freedom. But they had not taken their humanity. Humans did not abandon each other. The night of the escape was cold and dark. Forge Prime's 3 suns had set, and the factories glowed like burning eyes in the darkness. Marcus lay on his bunk, staring at the metal ceiling and thinking about Elena. Was she looking at stars right now? Did she still wear her bracelet? Did she know that somewhere in the galaxy, someone still remembered their promise? Tomorrow, he would find out. Tomorrow, the boy who had promised to marry her would begin the journey to become the man strong enough to save her. Marcus closed his eyes and made a new promise to himself. No matter how many Dominion ships stood in his way, no matter how many guards tried to stop him, he would reach Garden Station. He would find Elena. And when he did, he would have more than just a faded bracelet to give her. He would have freedom itself. The night air was thick with smoke as Marcus crept through the shadows of Factory 7. His heart pounded against his ribs like a trapped bird. Tonight was the night they would taste freedom, or die trying. Lisa Park was already at her post in the computer room. Her small fingers moved across the control panel like a pianist playing a deadly song. Green lights flickered on her screen as she broke through layer after layer of Dominion security. Almost there, she whispered into her hidden comm device. 2 more minutes. 3 floors below, Jake Morrison knelt beside a massive steam pipe. His homemade bomb was crude but powerful. Years of working with factory equipment had taught him exactly where to place it for maximum damage. Marcus watched Guard Captain Vex making his rounds. The big creche moved slowly, his yellow eyes scanning the workstations. He had no idea that death was coming for his kind tonight. All teams ready, Marcus whispered into his comm. Around the factory, 12 humans waited in the darkness. They were farmers and engineers, doctors and teachers. The Dominion had made them into slaves, but they were still human. They still remembered what it meant to fight for each other. Now, Marcus said. Lisa's fingers hit the final key. Every light in Factory 7 went out at once. Emergency sirens began to wail like dying animals. In the sudden darkness, Jake's bomb exploded with a sound like thunder. Steam and smoke filled the air. Creche guards shouted in their harsh language, running toward the explosion. They thought it was an accident. They were wrong. Marcus moved like a shadow through the chaos. His makeshift weapon was a piece of sharp metal welded to a handle. It was not pretty, but it was deadly. He found Guard Captain Vex stumbling through the smoke, calling for backup on his comm device. Looking for someone? Marcus asked. Vex spun around, his electric whip crackling to life. Slave, get back to your station. I don't think so, Marcus said. Then he struck. The fight was quick and brutal. Vex was bigger and stronger, but Marcus was faster and had 15 years of anger burning in his chest. When it was over, the guard captain lay still on the factory floor. Marcus picked up Vex's weapons and comm device. Guard Station 4 is clear, he reported to his team. One by one, his people took control of key positions. Tom Chen and David Kim secured the transport bay. Anna Volkov disabled the medical facility's alarm systems. Every human moved with perfect timing like parts of a single machine. But the Dominion was not helpless. Other guard stations were fighting back. Laser blasts lit up the darkness as Kresh soldiers tried to retake the factory. The humans were outnumbered, but they had something the Dominion did not understand. They refused to give up. Transport secured. Tom Chen's voice crackled over the comm. But we've got company coming fast. Marcus ran toward the transport bay, dodging laser fire and falling debris. Behind him, more explosions shook the factory as Jake's other bombs went off. The humans were not just escaping, they were destroying everything they touched. The transport ship was a sleek Dominion vessel designed to carry 50 soldiers. Lisa was already in the pilot's seat, her hands flying over controls she had studied for months. The engines roared to life with a sound like controlled thunder. "Everyone aboard!" Marcus shouted as his team ran up the loading ramp. They carried wounded friends and stolen weapons. Some were crying, some were laughing. All of them were free. The transport lifted off just as Kresh reinforcements arrived. Laser cannons fired from the ground, lighting up the ship's shields with bursts of red energy. Marcus felt the ship shake under the impact. "Can we make it?" he asked Lisa. Her face was pale but determined. "We're about to find out." The ship climbed, through Forge Prime's poisoned atmosphere like a bullet fired from a gun. Behind them, the factory burned with fires that would take days to put out. Ahead of them lay the stars and the vast unknown of space. But their freedom came with a price. As they broke orbit, Lisa's scanner showed the truth. 12 Dominion warships were moving to intercept them. "Well," Jake said, looking at the screen, "this should be interesting." The first battle was a nightmare of spinning metal and exploding light. The human transport was fast but lightly armed. The Dominion warships were built for destruction. It should have been a quick fight. But humans do not fight like other species. Where the Kresh followed rigid battle plans, Marcus improvised. He dove through asteroid fields that should have crushed their ship. He used the transport's small size to hide behind space debris. He fought like a man with nothing to lose. "Their attack patterns are predictable," Tom Chen observed as he worked the weapon systems. "They always come from the same angles." "Then let's give them something unpredictable," Marcus said. He flew the transport directly at the largest warship, as if planning to ram it. The Kresh captain must have thought the humans had gone insane. At the last second, Marcus twisted the ship sideways and fired everything they had at the warship's bridge. The massive vessel exploded like a dying star. The other warships hesitated. In that moment of confusion, Marcus jumped the transport into hyperspace. Stars stretched into lines of light as they escaped into the safety of faster-than-light travel. But safety was temporary. Over the following weeks, they were hunted across 3 star systems. More battles followed. The humans learned to fight as a team, using captured Dominion weapons and stolen intelligence. They also learned something else. They were not alone. During a raid on a Dominion supply convoy, they rescued 30 more humans from a prison transport. Among them was Captain Ray Turner, a former military officer who had been planning his own escape. "There are others," Turner told Marcus as they shared a meal of stolen Dominion rations. "Groups of escaped humans all over this sector. The Dominion calls us the Ghost Fleet." Marcus felt hope growing in his chest. "How many?" "Maybe 1,000 freed humans scattered across 50 ships. Small groups, but all fighting the same war." "We need to find them," Marcus said. "Bring them together." "Why?" Turner asked. Marcus touched the faded bracelet on his wrist. "Because I'm going to Garden Station, and I'm going to need all the help I can get." The rescue of the prison convoy brought them 43 humans and intelligence about Dominion troop movements. Marcus began to see the bigger picture. The Dominion was vast, but it was not perfect. They had weaknesses. They could be hurt. More importantly, they underestimated humans. The Kresh saw them as useful animals, nothing more. They never expected organized resistance. They never imagined that humans would risk everything to save each other. Garden Station is heavily defended, Lisa warned as she studied captured data files. Orbital weapons platforms. Fighter squadrons. It won't be like raiding a supply convoy. I know, Marcus said. That's why we're going to do something they'll never expect. He gathered his growing fleet around him. Ships that had once carried Dominion soldiers now flew under human command. Each vessel was a story of escape and courage, crewed by people who had refused to accept slavery. We're not just going to rescue the people on Garden Station, Marcus announced to his captains. We're going to free them all. Every human on that world. Every child born in chains, every woman forced to bear children for our enemies. The captains looked at each other with worry and wonder. The mission was almost impossible. Our insertion held thousands of prisoners and hundreds of guards. Sir, Captain Turner said carefully, the odds against us are enormous. Marcus smiled for the first time in years. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had found his purpose. Good, he said. The Dominion thinks they know humans. Let's show them what they've been missing. As the Ghost Fleet prepared for its greatest battle, Marcus stood alone in his cabin, looking out at the stars. Somewhere among those points of light was Elena. She was waiting for him whether she knew it or not. The boy had promised to return with a ring. The man would keep that promise even if he had to burn the galaxy to do it. Garden Station hung in space like a metal flower with deadly thorns. The orbital facility was enormous, with 12 rotating sections connected by long tubes. Each section housed thousands of human prisoners. Around it, defense platforms bristled with weapons that could destroy a fleet. Marcus stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the enemy stronghold through the view screen. His Ghost Fleet had grown to 60 ships carrying over 2,000 freed humans. They were farmers and teachers, mechanics and soldiers, all united by one simple truth. No human should live as a slave. Sir, Captain Turner reported, we're picking up massive energy readings from those defense platforms. They have enough firepower to vaporize our entire fleet. How many fighters? Marcus asked. 200, maybe more, all stationed inside the main hangar bays. Jake Morrison, now Marcus's chief engineer, shook his head. This is madness. We should find another way. But Marcus was not listening to the tactical reports. His eyes were fixed on Garden Station's medical section, a white tower rising from the station's center. Elena was somewhere in that tower. After 18 years, she was finally within reach. Lisa, he said to his communications officer, can you break their security codes? Lisa Park's fingers danced across her console. I'm already inside their outer systems. But Marcus, what I'm seeing... Her voice trailed off in horror. What is it? The medical files. They're not treating humans like people. They're treating them like breeding animals. Forced pregnancies every year. Children taken at birth. The mortality rate. She stopped, unable to continue. Marcus felt ice in his veins. How many humans are on that station? 8,000 prisoners. Maybe 3,000 children. Lisa's voice was small and broken. Marcus, some of the women have been there since they were teenagers. They've never known anything but this hell. The bridge fell silent. Every person there had suffered under Dominion rule, but this was worse than anything they had imagined. The creche were not just using humans as workers, they were farming them like cattle. We're going in, Marcus said quietly. Sir, Turner protested, we don't have enough ships. We're going in, Marcus repeated, his voice hard as steel. All of them. We save all of them. The battle began at dawn, station time. Marcus led the first wave, diving his fighters through the gaps between defense platforms. The Ghost Fleet moved like a school of fish, each ship covering the others, using speed and unpredictability to survive the storm of laser fire. The Dominion defenders fought back with mechanical precision. Their tactics were perfect, their formations flawless. But they could not adapt when the humans did something impossible, when Marcus flew his ship backward while firing forward, when Turner's squadron attacked from 6 directions at once, when Lisa turned the station's own communications against them, filling creche radios with screaming static. Outer defenses are falling, Jake reported from the engine room. "But we're taking heavy damage." Marcus's ship shuddered as laser fire tore through the hull. Smoke filled the bridge, and sparks flew from damaged consoles. Around him, his crew worked with desperate efficiency to keep them flying. "All ships prepare for landing assault," Marcus ordered. "We're going in hard and fast." The Ghost Fleet smashed through Garden Station's hangar bays like bullets through paper. Marcus was first through the breach, his weapon ready, his heart pounding with 18 years of hope and fear. The corridors inside were clean and white like a hospital, but the smell was wrong. Too many people in too small a space, fear and despair soaked into the very walls. Emergency lights flashed red as alarms screamed warnings in the Kresh language. Marcus led his strike team toward the medical section. Behind them, other human squads spread through the station, overwhelming the guards with sheer determination and fury. The Kresh had never faced humans who fought to save others instead of just themselves. The medical tower was a maze of corridors and locked doors. Marcus blasted through each barrier, following the station schematics Lisa had downloaded. His team moved like hunters tracking their prey, except their prey was freedom itself. "Through here," Lisa called, pointing to double doors marked with alien symbols. Marcus kicked the doors open and stepped into hell. The room was filled with hospital beds, each holding a human woman. Most were pregnant, their bellies swollen with children they would never be allowed to raise. Machines monitored their vital signs like they were experiments instead of people. The air stank of disinfectant and despair. Some of the women looked up as the armed humans entered. Their eyes were empty, broken by years of horror. Others were too weak to move. In the corner, a young girl who could not be more than 16 cradled her newborn baby and tried to hide. "It's okay," Marcus said, his voice gentle despite the chaos around them. "We're here to help. We're taking you home." "Home?" one woman whispered. "What's home?" Marcus felt his heart break, but he pushed the pain aside. He had come too far to stop now. "Elena Torres," he called out. "Is Elena Torres here?" Several women pointed toward a door at the far end of the room. Marcus ran toward it, his boots echoing on the clean white floor. Behind the door was a smaller room with only 4 beds. And there she was. Elena lay on the bed closest to the window, her dark hair now streaked with gray at 23. Her face was thin and pale, but her eyes still held the spark he remembered from childhood. She was pregnant, her condition making her look fragile and tired. She looked up as he entered, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. 18 years collapsed into nothing. He was 8 years old again, sitting by Crystal Creek with his best friend. "Marcus," she whispered, as if afraid he might disappear. He knelt beside her bed and carefully took her hand. It was warm and real and alive. After all this time, all this fighting, she was here. "I told you I'd come back," he said softly. Elena stared at him, tears running down her cheeks. Then she saw the faded bracelet on his wrist, the same silver-green cord they had braided as children, now brown with age but still whole. "You kept it," she breathed. "I kept my promise," he said. "All of it." She tried to sit up, but the pregnancy made her movements slow and careful. Marcus helped her, his hands gentle despite their scars from years of fighting. "Marcus, the children," Elena said urgently. "They take the babies, all the children born here. They raise them as perfect slaves. We have to save them." "We will," Marcus promised. "All of them." The evacuation was a race against time. Dominion reinforcements were coming, and the station's main reactor was starting to overload from battle damage. Marcus's people worked like heroes, carrying the weak and injured to the waiting ships. Elena insisted on walking to the transport, though Marcus wanted to carry her. "I've been lying down for 8 years," she said with a flash of her old spirit. "I can walk to my freedom." As they reached the hangar bay, a massive explosion shook the station. Warning lights flashed as automated voices announced evacuation procedures in a dozen languages. "That's our cue to leave," Jake called from the pilot's seat of their transport. Marcus helped Elena into a seat and strapped her in safely. Around them, the rescued humans stared out the windows at the stars. many seeing space for the first time in years, their children seeing it for the first time ever. The Ghost Fleet escaped just as Garden Station's reactor went critical. The explosion lit up space like a new sun, destroying the Dominion's most important breeding facility and sending a message across the galaxy. Humans would not be slaves. Not anymore. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, Elena reached for Marcus's hand. "Thank you," she said, "for remembering, for coming back, for keeping your promise." Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "The promise isn't finished yet," he said, thinking of the ring hidden in his pocket, a simple band made from metal taken from the first Dominion ship they had captured. "What do you mean?" Elena asked. Marcus smiled, the first real smile of joy he had felt in 18 years. "I still owe you a wedding." 2 years had passed since the destruction of Garden Station. The hidden world of New Earth was green and beautiful, with blue skies and clean air that tasted like freedom. Humans had built their new home in the shadow of purple mountains that reminded them of Haven's Rest, but this time they were ready to defend it. Marcus Reed stood at the edge of Crystal Valley, watching the sunrise paint the sky gold and pink. Tomorrow was his wedding day. After 20 years of separation, 18 years of slavery, and 2 years of war, he and Elena would finally keep their childhood promise. "You're up early," Elena said, walking up behind him. Her pregnancy was over now, and their daughter, Little Hope, slept peacefully in the settlement's nursery. Elena had grown strong again,